Okay, hello, this is Dr. Scott Langford. Welcome to Women's History Month 2021. This is one of our first events of the month. I'm Dr. Scott Langford. I'm an English professor at Foothill College, and I am here to introduce a former Foothill student, Sophia Falco, who has gone on to become an award-winning poet. But first, let me just mention that this is one of our kickoff events for the whole History Month, and I've got it screen shared there for you. So you can see that there's any number of events. I'm not going to read through them all, but I do just want to say I'm proud of Foothill College for the range and depth and variety of events. So you're certainly welcome to come to any of these. You can also go to the foothill.edu webpage, and this will also include eventually links to recordings of Sophia's talk and other people's talks. So if you can't be there synchronously in real time, you can always come in and join us later on and listen to the recorded talks. Or if you would love to hear Sophia's poetry again, you can come back and click. It takes a day or two to get that done, but it can be done. Now, having said that, let me just go right ahead and introduce our guest speaker, Sophia Falco. Sophia, as I mentioned, was a former Foothill College student not very long ago. She was an honors student, double major, English and Spanish. And it was, in fact, at Foothill that she began writing poetry. So she started out, I remember some of her early poems, I think, some of the earliest poems, starting out, somewhat tremulously. And then she transferred magnificently to UC Santa Cruz, where she has now also completed her undergraduate degree in literature and creative writing. If we're lucky, she'll be going on to creative writing MFA pretty soon, I think. That was on the list. I'll have to talk to Sophia to get updated, but I think that's what's going on. But even more excitingly, from just the first poems that began as a student, she's gone on to launch a career that's really got her going nationwide now. And so she's published a chapbook of poems, a book of poems called Immortal Sunflower that's been nominated for various wondrous awards. She's been featured in many other publications, both online and in print. She is contributing to the International Bipolar Foundation's websites, and she's also begun writing prose. So she's writing both poetry and prose at this point, which is equally exciting. Really wonderful prose, I must say, by the way, Sophia. I'm so proud of you. And she does discuss her life living with bipolar disorder as part of both her poetry and her prose. So that's one of the topics that she addresses in her poetry, as she'll tell you and as you're about to hear. So the general plan is that Sophia's going to give us a little reading for about 30 minutes. And then, of course, we'll be opening up for questions and answers. So we're disabling the chat for now so that we can all concentrate on Sophia's poetry, which I think you'll find is a natural thing to do. So I think distractions disappear, at least for me, when Sophia is reading. The world goes away in a wonderful way, and I enter her world. But do keep in mind your questions that you might want to ask, and you'll be able to ask them either by chat or we'll unmute you and you can ask them live one-on-one. So Sophia Falco, I am so delighted to welcome you back to Foothill College, and I can't wait to hear what you have for us this time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Langford, for inviting me back. I've been really looking forward to this event for Women's History Month. So I'll share my screen. I think that way everyone can follow along with what I have prepared for today. And as everyone, just to do a check, everyone can see that?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, great. So get started. I have 2 short prose pieces to start us off for opening remarks, both published by the International Bipolar Foundation. The first one is titled How Poetry Frees Me from Suffering, and the second one is Trapped Light. How Poetry Frees Me from Suffering. Poetry is what grounds me. I believe in this realm of poetry that I have complete control, which is ever so important for me as an individual affected by bipolar disorder 1 for over a decade. I have control over my pen and paper, control over my word choice and direction of my poems, control over this sacred space of creativity, and control over my complex mind that sometimes I feel I have lost power to when in episodes of depression, mania, or a mixed state. When I mean control, I mean that my poetry unites my body with my mind and with my soul, and that my poetry cannot be taken away from me. Poetry allows me for self-expression different of that in academic writing, which could not as effectively capture my emotions, feelings, and thoughts in the way that poetry does for me. I do feel that sometimes poems come to me and I feel this is a blessing, whereas other times I have to work much harder in the process of writing, editing, rearranging stanzas and such. So this is also, in a different way, a blessing. Writing poetry frees me from suffering. It allows me to liberate my troubling emotions, experiences, including fear, onto something tangible, just as simple, but at the same time, so profound of words on paper. Ultimately, I believe poetry is to not let those emotions be trapped, which causes further pain as time passes by. I write about different themes, not just solely on bipolar disorder. I feel that in regards to my more hopeful poems as an individual affected by this illness, that they are, in a way, more powerful coming from a unique perspective. When I feel centered and balanced, my appreciation for life is much greater because of the suffering I have had, and this makes life much more beautiful. Even when I'm in an episode, I remind myself that indeed life is still beautiful, such as illustrated by an innocent flower, and this motivates me to continue forth on my journey for mental health. As of today, I identify strongly as a poet, which has given me more confidence in my life, and without poetry, I would certainly not be the person that I am today.
Sophia, I'm just going to jump in for 1 second because I just want to say I love that piece of writing, and it's one of your newer pieces. And I'm going to assign it in my classes because I think it's there's this fancy word that you'll know, manifesto, which is a statement of belief. But I think that is a beautiful, beautifully written poetry manifesto. And I think so many students can resonate with finding a realm in which you do have control, in which you do have agency, in which you do have your voice. So I just had to jump in and be enthusiastic, and now I'll stop. I'll mute myself.
All right, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Trapped light. Those lovely fireflies are prisoners in a glass jar on our kitchen table. Their trapped light on display like the diminishing light within my being. Depression is trying to extinguish my light, but I hid the fire extinguisher under my bed, whereas I sleep too much to avoid emotional turmoil. I would like to free those lovely fireflies. The only way to release them, I thought, is to smash the jar. The lid has rusted shut on this antique mason jar. Then shards of glass would be flying about. However, I would be endangered even more. It is not worth the risk to do so. Yet at the same time, I don't want to watch those lovely fireflies die out. I think of my spirit and want to shake it out of this depressed mood. Even the vibrant, radiant sun has not given my spirit warmth and could not thaw it out of this darkness. It is winter, but it is warm while my spirit is hibernating. That's what my psychiatrist said, hibernating. How do I make my spirit not hibernate? I have a lot going for me in this life of mine. However, it feels like I can barely get it together. I can barely get it together to even cook for myself. So I ate 5 days old pasta, hoping to not get sick, while my clean clothes have been on a pile in the floor for over a week in order to use the basket for the dirty clothes. Bipolar disorder is a challenging illness, and sometimes I hate writing about it, but I continue to do so anyways. I hate the word hate. If only my spirit could drink the sun's rays, if only my spirit could drink moonlight, if only my spirit could get out of that cave. Sometimes I would like to cry, but sometimes I cannot. Fake it till you make it. I remember those lovely fireflies still on our kitchen table. They are not faking it till they make it. They are just being but trapped. Their authenticity needs to be freed. With agency, I declared I would rescue them. So I Googled how to, but I cannot seem to help myself. I put the jar under a stream of warm water. If only my stream of consciousness were pleasant, and scrubbed the edges of the lid with a small wire brush. I opened the lid outside, freedom for the light, and only if it were that easy to free the light within.
Sophia, I can't contain myself again, because that's another beautiful piece of new writing, and it's so powerful. And I love, I actually have a long-standing complaint in my life, which is that I think that I write pretty well as a prose writer myself, but I can't do poetry. And every successful poet that I've ever known can do both, and it drives me crazy, and I'm jealous. But it is a wonderful discovery. I think that you found this other way to express yourself, and I just want to say again, as somebody who's followed your work for years, that I think this is really a beautiful way to let people into your world and also to explore yourself. So thank you for sharing this with us. It's exciting for me to see new work. So
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, this is a much newer piece, Trap Light. So now get on to the poetry. Poetry and acknowledgements, we can go through this quickly, but as you can see, a lot has been published within this reading I'm gonna do. And so some are from my chapbook, The Immortal Sunflower, published by Uncollected Press in 2019. And then the rest are from my forthcoming book, Farewell Clay Dove, with Uncollected Press, which is a full-length collection. This photo was taken in Aptos at the golden hour. I took this photo. And I really like that there's a lone bird right there. Sometimes I feel like that bird, but anyways. Hourglass. The sand in the hourglass is missing, though the glass is not shattered. I discover the tan grains scattered in my green porcelain bathtub. I decide to let the water flow from the silver faucet and the sand swirls. The crystal clear water is too transparent, so I add blue dye. I create an ocean, and when I shut the faucet off, time sinks back to the bottom. Time. The invisible inner workings of my mind are like many clocks moving backwards. As darkness approaches, the hands quickly fade away. Time is nothing but a memory. Red dove. The eyes of a red dove quiver. The sun washes out the color of its feathers from red to pink, like the melting pink ice cream with clear sprinkles it is eating on the burning black pavement. Sugar crystals sparkle. I witness the pink dove levitate and float upwards like a pink balloon into the blue sky. Pop, the man shot it. Golden rays. The man on the moon shoots the sun. Some golden rays fizzle out. The darkening sky does not deter me from walking my tiger in circles on the cracked wooden floor in my yellow bricked apartment. Red leash bedazzled with rhinestones. I sigh, creating a void. Orange and black stripes disappear, remaining rhinestones. I pick up each sparkling jewel and arrange them in a star. Infinitesimal stars. I shrink stars small enough to fit in my faded brown treasure chest in my closet. Equipped with my butterfly net, I capture them as they fall from the heavens. I quickly lock them up and they jounce against the wooden walls. The frame becomes illuminated, and as I rejoice, I lose the key. Drifting. The stunning red feather drifts effortlessly in the hot summer sky and defies gravity with each passing minute. I pluck this treasure mid-flight with my thumb and index finger. I long to display this beauty in a little plastic box to add to my collection, but instead, like a lone escape flame, it burns me. Yellow blinds me into oblivion. The sunflower stands like a skyscraper, roots like a spiderweb on steroids. It seeds the size of pinpricks. Yellow blinds me into oblivion. Roots like a spiderweb on steroids. My feet get tangled in the silky strands. Yellow blinds me into oblivion. I pass out. My feet get tangled in the silky strands. I witness the grandiosity of nature. I pass out. Nature wins like it should. I witness the grandiosity of nature. It seeds the size of pinpricks. I pass out. The sunflower stands like a skyscraper. The battle within. My words are shooting stars with no filter, flying rapidly like demons in the sky. The ego soars, drenched with sorrow. The air is funny today, molecules bouncing around so rapidly, so many multiplying. I can see them. The wind pushes me and I fall some more, even though I'm lying on the red brick patio under the hot sun, while my thoughts are running towards yesterday and sprinting towards the future. My mind is wandering like a lost soul, crowded, seconds, minutes, hours. A cover song about love is on repeat. Hours pass and my shirt is soaked with sweat mixed with hot tears. I know I'm as good as God. Picasso is in my back pocket. No one knows who lives behind these curtains, not even I. How hard I try. Don't want to be forgotten. Snowflakes. I wish for my thoughts to be as wonderful as snowflakes. I hope to witness them from behind the window, free falling towards the ground in the crisp breeze. I long to catch one on my fingertip. Besides Raging Tiger, you can't just go asking for mercy after Kavith Akbar. Besides Raging Tiger, you can't just go asking for mercy. With claws like that, it's easy to grasp onto prey, but even with dew claws, you cannot write words. It's as if you illegibly scribble with red ink in the snow. I do not touch red pens because they are cursed. New problem. Perhaps you are blessed and provoking violence is just in your nature, or you are cursed, whereas I am not violent, but once I succeeded at hurting myself. Do you feel pain when burrs get in your paws? The tiniest injury could lead to something monumental. Tiger, tiger, please do not burn bright. Know who you are. You're not a star. Instead, follow their light from the heavens. My therapist pleads me to imagine a placid lake. Imagine a placid lake, my therapist pleads me. She needs me to calm down because mania has taken over my mind. I just cannot. Failure. The ideology behind it feels like it's incomprehensible as fish spewing fire. Terrified, I see a raging and threatening waterfall that bursts with psychedelic colors and radioactive waste, killing all living organisms in the plunge pool. The man from the dusty street appears, and he continues to shout, "You are bipolar," all while I'm sitting on her purple couch. Hopes of freedoming from a psychiatric hospital. For 14 traumatic days, pulse check. I know we've only lived together for a short amount of time, bipolar disorder. I've seen you in the movies, Silver Linings Playbook, bunch of Hollywood propaganda pushing agendas to romanticize you. Not everyone gets restraining orders. Pulse check. I remember the ambulance ride, told the driver to turn up the music. Pulse check. Mania, you brought me up, up, pulse check. Countless medication to try and bring me down, 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 pulse check. An injection tube, pulse check. Hopes of freedoming and to touch the blue sky because it felt like rainbows were catching on fire. Rocket ship. I condensed the power of the ocean into one single droplet of water. It was my hot tear that warped time during my 14-day stay in the psychiatric hospital. My body no longer felt like mine. Oh, mania. My nurse told me to paint every day. Art therapy, she said, but I could only paint countless red rocket ships that I longed to escape on, to connect my body to my mind that was somewhere lost in space and threatened by a black hole. I could feel she was disappointed in me. I taped up each identical painting to my wall just to realize that part of me was still on Earth. Wordless. I don't want to hit the point again where I feel writing is pointless, as if all my pencils are used up and all the lead is now lost in a sea of gray words. But now there are no words left to come forth, no words left to be born. There was a pencil sharpener, but that is now useless. I am terrified there will be nothing left to say. All my pens, but my red ones, ran out of ink too. Red is such a color that I would rather not think of, so I threw them out. She asked me, "Why did you throw out the red pens?" But I shrugged my shoulders and did not reply. I would never want to admit to her my depression. It's the beginning of the new year and I am pencilless and penless. I could write a letter in the sand with a piece of driftwood, but the sea would swallow up those letters like a raging tiger against its prey. A woman at my poetry reading asked me, "Are you a painter?" Because of my images I created with my words. I paint with words, but where are my pencils and pens when I need them the most? I could buy some, but I don't feel like it. If only she knew this depression so she would buy them for me as a gift, a free fall into a wordless abyss, because then I don't even value my voice. My voice yearns to be heard. I now avoid fortune cookies because the words haunt me and remind me of my losses, that my words have disappeared into a void. A letter from my dear friend. I know mania strikes noon. I can't stop worrying about you. You stuck in a tiny hospital room. This does not say anything about who you are as an individual, because ever since the day I met you, you are you, not a stale sugar cookie disintegrating by madness. Please, I'll talk back to depression for you. I truly don't care for it. Depression. In 14 days, then you will be granted free. Don't you understand? I love you. Bipolar disorder does not define you, and I love you. Definitions and diseases don't please me. I know you two lived together for a short amount of time, but the intensity built and built like my ever increasing love for you. You are you. The realm of blue. I find little credence among my defeatist thoughts, and they are now fleeting like the salt being lifted off the ocean in the crisp breeze, lost in the realm of blue sky. Letting go. I throw all my rocket ship paintings into the cool water. I witness the tide snatch them up and carry them off into the vast blue ocean. Caught in a spider web. A leaf dangles upside down like a trapeze artist floating to and fro. A leaf spins quickly and tightly like a ballerina. A leaf twirls like an umbrella whose top is inside out. Envisioning a clay dove that takes flight. I was given a miniature clay dove to be my guardian the day living with bipolar disorder became my reality, and I placed her on my bedroom windowsill. She was a reminder that there can still be peace despite my struggles that ebbed and flowed like waves crashing on a shoreline and rested in the same spot for a decade. Every morning I would check on her since I longed for her to take flight, and she became more than my guardian. In fact, she manifested my hopes and dreams. I too wanted to soar. I would dust her off with a tiny scrap of a dish towel. Her motionless presence filled up my bedroom, though this fine morning she was no longer there. It was as if she came to life and snuck out my cracked window without a sound during that hot summer evening and took flight under the bright stars. At first, I was heartbroken at this loss, yet I became conscious of my inner strength and that what is constant is change. Ode to a Sunflower. In outer space, a strong sunflower floats in orbit, and a lovely astronaut sprinkles joy on the sunflower. These sunflower seeds light up in a yellow spiral, one by one rapidly. Beams of light radiate out from each seed, and the petals pulsate with power. Flashes of gold in the realm of dark matter. These beams of light reach the earth, coated in a blanket of black, cutting through the darkness, zigzagging like lightning. Oh, how the sunflower shakes its head like a lion shakes his mane and showers yellow pollen that floats, drifts, and coasts the darkness, ever so gracefully with gold, like a rain that reaches earth. A sunflower bringing joy into this dark world. And the final poem, Farewell. When we parted, all the water evaporated from the earth's ocean, so only endless mountains of salt remained, as heavy as the moon, as heavy as my heart. On a pilgrimage in your honor to discover the tallest mountain, I traversed through treacherous terrain, while the sheer sun against the white hurt my eyes, and with every heavy footstep, my black boots crunched the salt, where the sound ricocheted from mountaintop to mountaintop. I prevailed by reaching the sparkling summit, then lay flat on my back and made an angel, sensing her spirit rising while witnessing the pinnacle of the sunset, its pink rays like roses without thorns. Oh, how I wish I could have bottled up that for you. For the sake of freedom, I shouted, let it rain, well equipped with my lifeboat made out of driftwood. The rain did come, dissolving the mountains, and I saw your reflection in a singular drop. And then I just have two short excerpts for closing remarks. From The Time Is Now and Embracing Gratitude, both published by the International Bipolar Foundation. The time is now. When I was in the depths of depression this past August, I decided I needed a higher power to lean on, though I understood it was up to me to improve my mental health. Furthermore, last year was a marking time in my personal life. My birthday was in November, and this marked a decade of living with bipolar disorder 1, but by no means did I let this define me or my dreams. That decade was a mixture of light years and dark years, where time was a shapeshifter, time was unbashful, where seconds, minutes, hours, and days flew by, but yet slowed to a crawl, sometimes simultaneously. The universe did deliver the ocean as my higher power this past August when I felt I needed something to hold on to, whereas I cannot hold onto water, so that is seemingly a paradox. The essence of the ocean is far beyond the realm of sight, and a constant force, always there when I need it, and is always in my heart. The ocean reminds me that when I feel I have lost power to my own mind, there is something out there greater than me that also has power. The waves form and hit their peak, but then they crash. However, not all is lost because new waves are born. Waves of blue, and I waved to the blue, but I didn't want to feel blue anymore. If blue didn't mean blue anymore, there would be no sorrow left to attach that connotation to the ocean. But to feel the light brighter, there must be darkness. The ocean is a witness to humanity's actions, thus witnesses sorrow, but does not turn away and does not leave us behind. Embracing gratitude. I delve deep into the dreamland of my imagination. I embrace envisioning light flowing throughout my body and soothing my mind, edging out the darkness that has taken up residency for far too long. The beauty of the natural world speaks to me in colors. When I'm in the presence of the blue and amazingly beautiful vast ocean, I feel its strength, reminding me that I too am strong. I'm rooted in reality once again with the resiliency I had all along, like that of a tree who has weathered many storms. A beacon of light, though at times very faint, deep within my soul, guides me through the sometimes dangerous waters of my mind. Now, when I feel moments of ease, I do not take these moments for granted. They are like the feeling of the cool, crisp ocean air swirling around my body. I am writing here before you today strong. I am writing here before you today as a resilient poet and a college graduate who has excelled. I'm writing here before you today as an individual, very grateful for my therapist and my psychiatrist. I have learned the tools of dialectical behavioral therapy, and I've implemented them in my life, which has been very beneficial. I want to emphasize that seeking help is not a sign of weakness, but instead a sign of strength, even though stigma is heavy in society still. I'm learning to be more compassionate towards myself. I realize I do not have to become more successful because success does not equal happiness. To become something else is no longer relevant. I'm learning to accept myself as I am and to believe that I am indeed enough. I have not let bipolar disorder 1 define me, even though I've faced stigma in my life. I know it is not all smooth sailing from here, yet I'm grateful, though I still acknowledge the world is in trying times, to be alive in this present moment.
Well, thank you, Sophia, so much for sharing both your prose and your poetry. Maybe we should unscreen share for a second here because we'll get a little bit more of that feeling of a dialogue. You are all welcome to ask questions and post comments. We can do it two ways. As you know, I think we're all becoming Zoom experts. So you can use the chat and we can read from the chat. We can read your questions. You can also raise your hand using your reactions button and we will unmute you and you can ask your question one-on-one, which is always my favorite way to do so. And Sophia, I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question. I always hear something new and different every time I hear you, and your voice is growing and changing in beautiful ways. It's been such a privilege to watch you grow as a poet and as a writer and as a person. Um, One thing that was striking me this time was the theme of time, and I wanted to ask if you, I don't even know if you can speak to it other than the way that you already have, but it struck me listening this time how many times you referenced time sort of stopping or spinning or freezing. And so I wondered if you wanted to speak to that and say anything in response. I don't want to sort of color it because I know we have what you've written already, but I also just wanted to call out that that was one thing that I was hearing so clearly this time. Maybe it's because I'm stuck in quarantine like the rest of us. And I think we've all experienced this time shift, right? And in our hopefully smaller ways, we've all been sort of struggling with this. So maybe that's why I hear the time imagery so powerfully this time, because we're locked in this weird time warp called pandemic quarantine that seems to go on and on. So any comments to that?
Right. Yeah. I think it could be more relatable to more people, the concept of time and how perhaps some days can feel much longer or faster. My work explores that sentiment. Like I was saying, different states of mind, time can feel elusive or feels like it's going really fast, or kind of losing that distance with time, what's going on. And so I think, yeah, it's definitely been a theme in my work, and it stands out to me as well because just different emotional states and dealing with that, and just kind of the thought of, where am I in this moment, and what are my thoughts doing in this moment?
Right. It's and thank you for that answer. That's actually quite illuminating. I'm still sort of scanning. I'm not seeing questions yet. So I'm going to keep watch out. I'll just keep doing questions. Oh, I see one from Karen. Karen, I think you're able to unmute yourself. Either that or Rick will do that for you. And I do want to thank Rick and Aaron, my two colleagues who are helping monitor the chats and who are also instrumental in keeping these History and Heritage Months alive at Foothill College. All right. So Karen, go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have met Sophia in a women's group in Connecticut. That's where I am.
Wow.
And she is a remarkable young lady. And it has been my honor to listen to her poetry. It is absolutely amazing to get a glimpse of what it's like to be bipolar, because I've never even thought of something like that. But to get an insight to a condition that is so debilitating, and she handles it with such grace. And for one so young to have the wisdom that she has, and it's funny, they say wisdom comes with age. That's not right. She has dashed that phrase. You are wonderful, Sophia. You are going to make a difference in this world.
Thank you. I
And
really
thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you so much, Karen. And thank you for joining us all the way from Connecticut. So
Yes, it's my pleasure.
yes, absolutely. And actually, Sophia, the question that I had in my head, and I see there's another question coming up too, I think, but let me throw mine in. We're here for Women's History Month, and let me ask you, how do you feel? How do you feel about your identity as a woman in your poetry? So often we're focusing on living with bipolar disorder, and appropriately so. You do speak to it a great deal, but what are your thoughts as a woman poet and putting your voice out there in the world right now?
Yeah, so the women poets who I look up to, of course, Joy Harjo, the poet laureate of the U.S.
I'm teaching
Yeah.
right now.
For sure. I really find her book, She Had Some Horses, quite remarkable. It's an older, I believe that's an older
Right.
book of hers.
Older book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like Juliana Spar with her book, I think, This Connection of Everyone with Lungs, and Brenda Hillman. I really find they are bold and take risks, and are very experimental. And so I've looked up to them and tried to incorporate some of that in my work. Like Brenda Hillman, she has a lot with matter and time and space. So my poem, The Battle Within, I took inspiration about theirs, funny, and then using the word molecules. I don't know if that would have crossed my mind prior to reading her awesome poetry, but as myself, I'm just happy I'm able to put my work out there. And yeah.
Well, I think it's beautiful that you're aware of and acknowledge the poets that came before you. I, with my English teacher hat on, but also with my old guy hat on, I remember so clearly, for example, one of my teachers, Adrienne Rich at Stanford, was famously began, and one of the great poets of the 20th century, you know, a breakthrough woman poet with a huge career, and really an eminent poet. But when she began writing, she used the male pronouns because there was just this thing, and she writes poetry about breaking out of trying to sound like a man in poetry. There was a real silencing of women's voices. And it caused its own kind of depression and its own kind of oppression. And so it's wonderful that here we are in the 21st century, and you're able to take a place in this world that they helped to break open for you as a female poet. And this is a long story. It's longer than Adrienne Rich in the 1950s. So reaching so far back, women poets have had to sort of fight to have space on the stage. And you're part of that. You're really part of that. And it's another reason it's a privilege to know you. Now, I see Olivia's hand is up. So let me call on Olivia. Olivia, if you want to unmute yourself, go right ahead and please do ask your question.
Yes, so I'm also from the same women's group as Karen, and I want to say I agree with everything she's said. I second that. I haven't known Sophia for very long, and she's impressed me already, both as a person and as a poet. And I was curious about the way your writing and your bipolar interact together, and if you find that whether you're in a mood state changes your experience of writing, or if you gravitate towards different types of writing depending on whether you're in a depressive episode or a manic episode or at baseline.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think in society, with writing and bipolar disorder, that, you know, it's romanticized in just not good ways. So that's a really good question. I would say for myself, in a depressive episode, depending on the severity of it, I alluded to that in the piece of Wordless. When it's at its worst, the thought is, will I lose faith in writing? And that's a really heartbreaking thing. But when it's not at that depth, yeah, I find inspiration in the emotions and the sadness, and yeah, but I think that's what I would say regarding that, if that answers your question.
Great. I see that Heidi was wanting to make a comment. Heidi, if you're still with us, I'm kind of scrolling at the top of the screen, so I'm not necessarily seeing Heidi's name right now. But Heidi, if you're there, you can unmute yourself and please do share. And then while we're seeing if that's going to happen, Sophia, I did want to thank you myself too. I have several family members who struggle with bipolar disorder, and it's been my deep pleasure to gift your book to them as something really healing and something affirming and supportive. So it's been on that personal level also. We didn't actually know that they had bipolar disorder when I first met you. So it's been an interesting journey for me to know you first as a student, and then now as an emerging poet out there in the world. And so I've enjoyed that a great deal. I see Heidi, who is also Toivo, needs to be unmuted. She's having trouble unmuting herself. Is that something we can do, Rick or Aaron? Okay, go ahead. Thank you. And Heidi, if you'd like, I think you can break in now. Let's see if we can get your voice out here. Symbolically, we're trying to get the voices of women in the group.
Yes, thank you very much. I apologize, I couldn't change my name to Heidi. So, but I too am from Connecticut, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Sophia virtually. So I want to express gratitude first for sharing you with us through your writing and through your presence. And my question, I was just wondering, is where do you get your inspiration from, first of all? And secondly, more of a comment. I feel that you did a beautiful job tying in being a person living with bipolar and connecting it to the topics of your poetry.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say a heavy inspiration of mine is nature. I just love using nature metaphors in connection to the intense feelings and emotions that sometimes come living with bipolar disorder. So there's the tiger, right? In that poem, Golden Rays, where the speaker of the poem is trying to take control of the tiger, but because they're in a different mindset, in a distorted reality, thinking, oh, I can just defeat nature. I can just, get this tiger on a leash and whatever. Of course, that's a fantasy poem, but the meaning behind it. And then you have the tiger resurface in my newer poem after Kavith Akbar. He's my favorite poet. He wrote, besides Little Goat, you can't just go asking for mercy. So I flipped it to a raging tiger instead of a cute little innocent goat walking around. So yeah, heavily inspired by nature.
Beautiful, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Okay, and let's see if I don't think I'm seeing any hands, which means I can have more questions. Sophia knows that I could keep going. Here's Mike. Okay, Mike's hand just flew up. This is so fun being in the Zoom room when these hands fly up. Mike, go ahead and unmute yourself, and please do join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I could join today's event. Something Karen said really struck a chord with me. So I've known Sophia for quite a few years, many years. And I just will share that Sophia was born wise. The first words she would say, 5, 6, 7 years old, she would say something and we'd think, a 7-year-old doesn't see the world like that. She's been wise all along. And I'm very happy that she found poetry or poetry found her. I'm glad that she's on that journey. It's really a gift for all of us.
Wow, Mike, that's I want to thank you for that also. I think that's a wonderful insight. And since Sophia and I are Joy Harjo fans, Sophia, I'm teaching her memoir. If you haven't read Crazy Brave, I think you would love it.
I read it. Yeah, I read it. Wow.
She actually talks about her spirit before it is born and choosing her parents, since we have some parents here. And so it resonates with me with Sophia, but it also resonates with me for other poets that I've had the pleasure of knowing or teaching. So thanks for that. For me too. And then Sophia, I'll get out of the way again. Did you want to respond to that? I don't know, because I kind of jumped in on top of it.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. It looked like their chat wanted to be unmuted.
Oh, okay. And I see Julianne has her hand up, so maybe we should just let her go right ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Julianne, you can unmute yourself, or we will unmute you. Let's see, I'm still seeing the mute button on there.
Okay, I think I got it.
There you go. Good.
All right, cool. I think I could even can't put my video up, huh? Okay. I'm just wondering, Sophia, as your readers, I know we all just adore you and love you. And is there anything that we can do for you? I mean, if you were to imagine, I don't know, just anything at all, is there any, because I'm sure we all feel that way. And there are some times when it's just such a tricky thing to know how to best support those that you love and those that you have that have a career like this. So yeah, I just ask you to know that I bet you we're all here, and if anything ever does come up that occurs to you, to just remember that we're here with both hands, probably both eyes and both feet, to just love you and support you and help you in whatever way we can.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Sophia, now that you're a little bit further along the road of poetry, what would you say, I guess I want to say to my new Sophias? So I have students, I do have, I have students that are beginning to write poetry, as you were once, and also famously as part of quarantine, but just what it's like to be an adolescent right now. So many students struggling with various forms of depression. So I wonder if you have advice to young poets from your slightly further down the road, and if you look back to yourself or others that were once in your shoes, what would you say to them now?
Yeah, for the act of writing, I would say to just try to let it flow, not censor yourself, like, meaning don't, I was in a poetry workshop today and they said, you cannot edit a blank page, you just have to write and write and write and let it just come out, and then later you can edit it. But I think in the beginning, it's just writing. The act of writing is super, super critical. Because I've written a lot, and I've seen some past works of mine that showed up in like a binder I found, and I'm like, wow, did I write this? And it's like, yes, I did. But it's just an evolution of the craft over time, is how I feel about it. And to trust your poet instinct. I really heavily rely on my poet instinct.
Okay, wonderful. I think I may be losing track of names. It looks like Catherine would like to say something. And if so, go right ahead. I think this will maybe be the last comment, because we are going to try to be mindful of people's time. Sophia is included, and those of you in Connecticut, or it's a little bit later. But Catherine, are you there and wanting to say something?
Yeah, sure. I'm a fellow writer like Sophia. We met at a writing group. And I also have bipolar disorder. Pretty bad actually. But Sophia's poems, which she sends to me, they kind of keep me on going and knowing that someone else there is going through the same thing and that I'm not alone. And that really means a lot to me, because bipolar is a very lonely thing, and Sophia makes it a little easier.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me, and your friendship and support for the time we've known each other.
Thanks. You too.
Yeah, and Sophia, I think that was such a beautiful comment, and I think maybe this is a good place for us to close up. You do speak beautifully and powerfully to the sense of loneliness in your poetry, and even in the images, right? Like you were mentioning that the one bird, and I mean, that's another image that comes through very strongly to me through your poetry. And I do really believe that both in what you do and in what poetry can be, it's a way to break through those walls of loneliness. And I think you hear in this amazing response from across the United States and across the generations that your poetry really has power and presence in the world. And I am 100% confident that if you keep putting your voice out there and let it grow and keep working on your craft, that you will continue to find an audience, but also that an audience will find you, because as Catherine just said so beautifully, that it's really a help to others as well. And that's a beautiful thing to do with your voice, right? I think it does help you, from what I can tell, reading and speaking with you all these years, but it has a healing force, and that's a really wonderful thing to say about poetry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to have any closing words as we go?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, the Q&A went, everyone really supportive, and I really appreciate that. And I guess to try to stay strong. I know it's really tough times, but try to everyone do some self-care, and yeah, I guess that's my closing remark.
Yeah, and I hope that all of you that are fans will find your way to Sophia's new publications, or maybe some that you haven't read that she's previously put out there. It is really important at this stage of her career to, another way to support her is to get in there and clap for things and like things and buy things. And I know that comes naturally to many of you, but I also know, as an English professor and as someone who's watched so many poets try to get launched, that we can put a little, we can help put some air under her wings, I guess is what I was trying to say. And it's important for us to do that. It's important for Sophia, but as I was just saying, it's important for other people too, because this is really a great way to help grow and destigmatize bipolar disorder, but also to make mental health a really powerful statement out there in the world. So thank you so much, Sophia. I'm going to close up the discussion, and if any of you want to linger a little bit longer, I think we'll do that, but I'm going to say goodbye from Foothill College right now. And thank you to all of you from Spain, from Connecticut, from Aptos, California, where Sophia is sitting now, from Denver, Colorado, where I am sitting now. It's been a wonderful gathering, and we will look forward to hosting Sophia in future years at Foothill College. We're going to continue to claim you as our alumna. So that isn't going to go away from Foothill College, Sophia. Thank you.